Hey guys, Mr. Bowman here. Today's learning objective is in blue and we are learning to increase or decrease amounts by a given percentage. So I'm going to underline those key words. We are looking to increase or decrease. This does follow on from the skills that we learnt in yesterday's video, and we are going to go through two questions in white, just some standard maths questions, and then we're going to go through two real world examples of when we need to increase and decrease amounts by a given percentage. So let's get into that first question in white. So that tells us we need to increase 150 by 20. Okay, so our starting point, I'm going to underline 20 because 20 is the most important part here. So we are looking, before we can increase it, we need to find out what 20% of 150 is. And this is identical to the skill in yesterday or the earlier video, where we find 20% of 150. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 150 times 20 over 100. So 20 over 100, that's how to convert the fraction back to a decimal. And that's really important for this. So I'm going to use my calculator. 20 divided by 100, okay, that comes to 0.2. So we're going to go 150 times 0.2. And again, I'm going to use my calculator. 150 times 0.2, well, that's going to come to 30. And what that tells us is 30% of 150 is 30. And we're now going to change or increase the amount. So what we do is I'll set up a little formula. So the original amount, which in our case is 150, plus the change, and that's the number we have just calculated, that will be equal to the increased or new amount. So the original, in our case, I already said 150. The change, well, we said we're going to increase it by 20% or increase it by 30. And that combined comes to 180. Okay, the next part, we're going to decrease 200 by 30%. So again, our first step, we need to figure out what 30% of 200 is. So we're going to go 200 times 30 divided by 100. So again, I'm going to use my calculator. 30 divided by 100, well, that's going to come to 0.3. So I'm going to go 200 times 0.3. And if I do that maths on my calculator, that tells me that's 60. So what that's saying is 30% of 200 is 60. And we now need to decrease the amount. So to decrease the amount, we're probably going to want to use subtraction. And I'm going to set up a little formula again. We're going to go OG minus the change. And that's going to be equal to the original 200 minus the 60 change. And that's going to become 140. So I do want to highlight one key thing. When we are increasing, we're going to be adding that change. And when we are decreasing, we're going to be subtracting that change. Okay, I've switched to the blue pen, and we're now going to get into two real-world examples where we need to increase or decrease amounts by a given percentage. So the first one we're going to look at is something to do with a pay rise. So the example that I'm looking at is, let's say I currently earn $25.50 per hour. And my boss, he tells me, man, you've been working so hard, so hard, you're going to get a 10% pay rise for your efforts. We need to figure out, well, what would our new hourly rate be? So just like we did for the increase 150 by 20%, we need to find 10% of $25.50. So let's go 25.50 times 10 divided by 100. And I know that's 1/10 or 0.1. So we're going to go 25.5 times 0.1. So I'm going to put that into my calculator to make sure I don't do any silly mistakes. and that has come to $2.55. So that means my increase in pay will be $2.55. So I'm now going to do that. So the original amount, $25.50, plus the new or changed or increase that I'm going to get, $2.55. Those two combined will give me my new pay rate, and that comes to $28.05. And again, I used my calculator to make sure I don't do any silly mistakes. So that's my new amount. So I've increased my original pay of $25.50 by the 10%, $2.55 that I've calculated, to tell me that my new hourly rate is going to be $28.05. So I'm pretty happy with that new increased amount. That looks pretty good to me. And I am going to change pen colors. Let's look at the white pen. And that was an example of pay or percentage increases in the real world. What about percentage decreases in the real world? And for me, the most common one that I see in my life is sales and particularly discounts off old Pokemon cards. So that sometimes they sell them really cheap and I can get a really good deal and I need to figure out what price I'm actually going to be paying for those Pokemon cards. So let's write a new question. That's to do with a Pokemon discount. So let's say Farmers is doing a really, really good special where I'm going to get 40% off all of the Pokemon cards that I buy. So let's say I'm at the shop, I picked all the ones off the shelf that I want, and the original price of all of those goods, so I'm looking at the price tags and they're all going to come to $175. I need to figure out how much money am I actually paying for these Pokemon cards. So the first step, this looks like a percentage decrease scenario because I'm going to be decreasing my original amount for that percentage. So let's find what 40% of 175 is. So I'm going to go 175 times 40 divided by 100. And that's going to be 175 times 0.4. So you can use your calculator to double check that that comes to 0.4. And that is going to be equal to, I am going to use my calculator for this one, 175 times 0.4, that's going to come to $70. So I'm going to save $70 from this purchase of Pokemon cards at Farmers. Okay, I'm then going to actually do that math. So I'm going to do the original amount, 175. I'm then going to subtract the amount I'm saving. That's the 40% off the price. And that means I'm actually going to be paying $105 for those Pokemon cards. And I think that's really cool. That's a really good discount. I'll definitely do that if that was a real scenario. Okay, guys, thanks for listening to this video on percentage increases and decreases. Hopefully you found it useful. And if you are struggling to find the percentage of a given amount, please pop back to the previous video and that helps us calculate that portion. And don't forget, if you need help or if you don't want to make silly mistakes, you are allowed to use your calculators to support your working. All right, guys, now let's get into some questions.